Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 4th of May, Star Wars Day, as the film buffs like to call it. Johnny, you'll like May the 4th, will you not? Being you a big Star Wars man?
Well, you know, I was born in 1981, mate, so you make your own decisions about whether or not I'm a Star Wars man. I have been partial to a little Mos Eisley, a little Mandalorian type vibes. So yes, I'm a celebrant of May the 4th. And actually, Derek, I shouldn't actually probably admit this, but I do recall at one point in my youth filling out a census and under religion putting Jedi. So, I mean, I'll let that speak for itself.
Well, there you go.
It's slightly embarrassing in 100 years when my future generations in the McFarlane clan go through the census data and find out that their great-great-grandfather or whatever was a total tube. But there you go.
Absolutely fantastic. Every day's a school day, folks. So there we go. Right, we're not on here to talk about Star Wars, of course. We're on to talk about Rangers. Before we do that, just a quick word for our podcast sponsors, Seneca Hair Restoration, the #1 hair transplant group in Europe. Unfortunately, as a comment suggested yesterday, they don't do team restoration, so that's up to Michael Beale and the guys, John Bennett and the likes, to sort that out in the summer, of course. But yeah, if you're looking to restore some lost self-confidence, perhaps some lost hair follicles on top of your cranium, then these are the guys to go to. And as ever, I've put the all-important links in the description box, so do go and check them out. Right, quite a wee bit to talk about, Johnny. Now, of course, Rangers were taking on Celtic yesterday. We'll touch on the Youth Cup final first, because what an encounter that was at Hampden last night. Rangers losing out by 6-5. Quite incredible, really. Watched it on the TV last night, and it really was a proper cup final, if you like. Rangers very unlucky, I think, when reduced to 10 men. Zach Lovelace shown a second yellow for an apparent dive in the penalty area that has caused quite a bit of controversy.
I don't know how.
Yeah, afterwards, I know that the coach Cameron Campbell not too happy about it, and Celtic would go on and win the game after extra time. Johnny, what did you make of it all last night?
Well, first of all, you have to give both teams credit, because it was an incredible game. One of the best games I've seen live in terms of just sheer entertainment value. I mean, you can't get much better than 11 goals if you're talking about bang for your buck as a punter. Clearly, Rangers were very, very disappointed after the game with their defending. I felt that they were cut open time and again between the right-sided centre-half and the right-back, and Celtic just had a field day down there. I think 4 of the goals came from that area. But after a really, really poor first half defensively, I thought they really did get their act together in the second and were the better side. Then you have the moment with the red card for Zach Lovelace, who I thought had a really good game up till that point. For me, it's a stonewall penalty. I don't understand where this controversy's come from. If you watch it at full speed, Derek, I mean, I instantly knew it was a penalty at the game. It wasn't one of those where you had any doubts whatsoever watching it live. You just look at the movement of his body. That's not a movement that a body makes when someone is throwing themselves forward. Do I think Lovelace anticipates the contact a little bit? Yes. But when you watch it at full pelt, there is no doubt whatsoever that he catches him. And these 3 angles that the BBC have shown, if you look at the clip that's doing the rounds, on the third one, you can clearly see that the Celtic player's knee impacts with Lovelace. Spoke to Cameron Campbell after the game last night. He was obviously very disappointed with the defending. Was unequivocal at losing 6 goals to Celtic in a cup final's unacceptable. But was adamant that moment you really did turn the game, and it did. If you were there on the ground, Celtic absolutely took the initiative from that point. It was always going to be difficult for Rangers They lacked too much penetration, even though they did score, obviously, late in the game, after the game was finished, to be fair, when it was 6-4. But overall, Derek, I think in terms of this young group, clearly got a lot of talent going forwards. At the back, perhaps not where they need to be. I don't think there's any doubt about that, and you can see that from the game. What I would say is that speaking to people in and around the club, as we do, it's the next generation next year that I think are the ones that are seen as the ones that people are very, very excited about. That's the first full generation that's gone through the Beauclair Academy. It's the first generation that's gone absolutely through the academy when it's been a modern institution. It's been a long road for the academy in terms of coming back from where it was when Craig Mulholland took it over, and it's unrecognisable now. Now, of course, I don't think there's been as many players come through as anybody would have wanted, but people would have wanted more. But Nathan Patterson, for example, has paid for that academy and then some with that one single transfer. So it goes to show when you get it right what you can achieve. And I think the academy's in a really good place for someone else taking over, and they will come in and probably reap the benefits of some of the good work that Craig's done behind the scenes that he won't see the fruits of. But as I say, speaking to people around the club, they're very excited about this next group that will be kind of the under-18s next year, and hopefully that will be a group that can take Rangers to these sort of trophies. But ultimately, I think you have to say well done to both teams for an outstanding game of football. Yeah, definitely. Let's get lots of comments coming in with regards to the game, all with differing opinions. It's an interesting... John Adams says on Lovelace, needs to improve his diving. DK says, Ure was incredible. How do we let this guy go? He was literally Barry Ferguson reincarnated, he says. He was very good. He was very, very good. I think that's a disappointing one. Yeah, out of contract, of course, in the summer, Johnny. It certainly is. I don't think he's yet to sign a new deal at Rangers. There have been murmurings he could be headed for perhaps some club sniffing about him down south as well. So, one to keep an eye on with regards to that. Tam Brown says, watch the Youth Cup final. I don't think any of our players are ready to play for the first team yet. Was there anyone there? Because just on the back of that, Kenny McCarthy says... anyone watching last night will see Rice and Lovelace are not ready for the first team. Those are the two names that have been mentioned recently, Johnny, especially with these 5 games coming up. They were unused subs at Pittodrie recently. What did you make of both of them? Are they ready for the step up to the first team? Well, first of all, what I would say is Bailey Rice is going to make the Rangers first team. There's a prediction for you. Sometimes when you see a young player, it's just supremely obvious what they've got, and he is one of those... I didn't think he had a game that you would say hit the standards that he's capable of yesterday, but there were still a lot of flashes where he split the lines brilliantly. His passing, his composure. He reminds me of a very, very young Matic. He's got that sort of rangy, he's quite tall, physically strong, but almost slightly languid in his kind of movements. I think he's a player that's got everything to reach the top. He just needs to obviously polish elements of his game and develop more experience. I think it is too early though for him, and Michael Beale will be all over that and all over the pathway to get him into the first team. Zach Lovelace, for me, needs to do a bit more. He's a guy who's played in the Championship. I don't think he's ready. I thought he played quite well yesterday. But to me, if you want to get into the Rangers first team, you need to be ripping it up at that level. Yeah. That's the truth of it, Derek. You need to be making it look like you're a man in boys football. And certainly when Nathan Patterson was playing at that level, Derek, once he kind of took the growth spurt that took him to the next level, that's what it looked like whenever I saw him at youth level. And this is the second time I've seen the kind of B team stroke under 18s relatively close proximity to each other, and I don't think there's anyone that stands out as being someone that can come into the first team reckoning and actually play in the first team anytime soon. Now, I'm saying that, Derek, but I don't know. Sometimes these players can come in and all of a sudden blossom when they're around better players. But I just look at the physicality and just think maybe not quite there. And I think Zach Lovelace obviously has got a huge amount of talent, but I think you've got to see more if you're going to grab or that first team slot or battle your way into a first team slot. I'm not convinced.
Yeah, and as Xander says, I mean, I was all for throwing these young boys in and giving them a chance for the final 5 league games of the season, but it is relatively disappointing to hear that many think that they're not ready to even play, even though these games don't really mean that much in the grand scheme of things.
Got to remember, Derek, it's under 18s last night. So
yeah, it's a fair point,
16-year-old and 17-year-old kids. And
these
guys in the B team like Robbie Ewer, for example, who is probably more physically ready for the demands. As you would expect, I think you've got to be a bit of a phenom to be 17, 16 years old and ready for first team football, because we know that, especially in the modern game where players are basically built like, middleweight boxers now, there's not an ounce of fat on them. They're conditioned within an inch of their lives. 16 is very difficult to match that, so you have to have a supreme footballing ability. And I think there's players there that are clearly going to have a good career in the game, but in terms of being ready for Rangers right now, for me, I don't see anyone that's fits that criteria. But maybe that's unfair to even expect that of kids these age.
Yeah, interesting comment from Ross. He says, I thought Bailey Rice was good last night, really composed in possession. Archie Stevens, very good second half too. Lovelace is a long way to go into the first team. Archie Stevens is one that I like. I remember speaking to his coach at Wimbledon when he came through there, and it was a really interesting piece on the website. Folks, do go and check it out. He spoke very highly of Archie. Archie says he's a top lad, and he really expects him to go far in the game. So, I think he's certainly got a bright future ahead of him.
He was good. He was good, Derek. He was very lively, quick feet, direct as well, which I like. Sometimes I worry about these modern wingers. They watch Mohamed Salah and maybe Robin before that, and they focus their game too much on cutting inside. Because for me, a winger has to be able to go both ways. And if you can't jink down the outside and put a cross in, then you're not going to get the bums on seats. You're not going to get bums off seats as well, with moments of great creative quality. And I was impressed that Archie Stevens is a guy that not only works his backside off, which he did, but it's got a bit of quality and a bit of directness that I think is quite exciting. So fingers crossed that he can become a player in future that makes the grade, but he just needs to keep doing what he's doing. Ultimately, mate, these young players, and I know this is something that's drilled into them at the academy, when you sign up for Rangers, when you sign that professional deal, that's when the hard work starts. To get to that stage, you have to be something pretty special. But then to get to the next stage, you have to be something extraordinary. And what I mean by that, Derek, is statistically, of course, there's people in professional football who are not necessarily all that brilliant players. I'm sure many of us grew up with Tanner ball players who were sensational in terms of their skills, but maybe didn't have the mentality or didn't have the physicality or for other reasons didn't quite make the grade. And that's why it's so difficult. I think it's something like 0.5% of footballers become professionals. So it's you really have to be something very, very good to make it at a club like Motherwell, to make it at a club like St Mirren. So to make it at a club like Rangers, it really is a very, very demanding task. And you see the guys that have made a success of it in years gone by, the ones that really came through and set the heather alight, players like Barry Ferguson, like young Nathan Patterson. These guys have been absolutely exceptional. So there needs to be a level of realism around that as well.
Yeah. Right, let's move on to other matters involving Rangers. Before we do that, just a shout out. John Dooley gets in touch. Derek, can you wish my eldest daughter, Caitlin, a happy birthday as she turns 16 today? Absolutely, John. Happy birthday, Caitlin. Hopefully you have a super day from everyone here at the Rangers Review. OTB 16 again, Johnny.
Wouldn't fancy that, to be honest. Quite happy being an old fart. Okay. Thank you.
On that note, let's move on because there's a piece on the website this morning. I've touched on the Ryan Kent. It looks like he's heading out the exit door in the summer, Johnny. This poor showing in the Scottish Cup semi-final may well be his last in the Rangers jersey. Michael Beale was asked about him and Morelos, if that's the last we'll see of them after the game. He says possibly yes. I've touched on whether he has proven to be value for money for the £7 million Rangers paid Liverpool for his services back in 2019 it was, after that season-long loan. For me, I'm not entirely sure he has repaid that transfer fee. I think I quote Tor Andrew Flo in the piece as well, where his goals to games ratio was pretty decent for any other player, but for the financial outlay that Rangers paid Chelsea for him, he's been widely regarded as a flop. And I think Ryan Kent may be thought of that way when he heads off to pastures new. What's your feeling on Kent? Have Rangers got bang for their buck for him?
Probably not, but I disagree with you. I think history will be quite kind to Ryan Kent. He's not the guy that delivers those huge numbers. Never has been. I think his assists have been pretty good, to be honest. If you look back over the seasons, that's not an issue. It's clearly goal scoring. He's not a natural finisher by any means. He pings the odd cracker in, and certainly if you look at his highlights reel over his time as Rangers, he has scored some spectacular goals. But the bread and butter of arriving at the back post, that's not really his game. You look at that £7 million outlay, Derek, and you'd have to say that if you'd said at the time that Rangers would be seeing him walk out the door for free 4 years later, I don't think anybody would have been happy with that scenario. This was not a signing that was made for this to happen. This was a signing that was made with the idea that you would sell him on 2 or 3 years down the line. I personally think it's a bit of a shame that he wasn't signed up to a 5-year deal at the time, but, everything is great in hindsight. We're seeing in football a more generalised move towards more and more players running down their contracts. That's across the board. It's much more prevalent than it was at one time. Obviously, part of that is because of the exponential growth in player salaries and clubs obviously desperately trying to keep that under wraps because of how it affects their finances. So you look at Kent. Would Rangers have got to 55 without Ryan Kent? Would Rangers have got to Europa League final? Can I tell you what? Absolutely not.
Yeah, no. He was huge in that run. He was huge
instrumental in that run to Seville. Absolutely sensational against Dortmund. Run them ragged. Very, very good in the games against Red Star. I think really threatening against Leipzig. Braga is another very good performance. And listen, let's not go back down this road, but what a chance in that last minute to be an all-time Rangers hero. Talking about him turning up at Ibrox when he's 75 and being lauded if he just put that shot in the back of the net in the 118th minute instead of against the legs of the must be said excellent Frankfurt keeper whose name escapes me off the top
Daniel
of my head.
Trapp.
Yeah, I'm glad you can. I've tried to block that memory out there.
Yeah.
But listen, I think it's like everything else. It's nuanced, isn't it? Yes, cards on the table, have an opinion. 7 million has been a lot of money, and I don't think that's been value. But would you trade up the memories of the run to Seville for too much? I'm not sure. Yeah.
Kev raised an interesting point. He says that if you break down the fee over the length of his stay, it's probably about 2 million per season. From that point of view, it's a decent return.
The problem with that outlook, Kev, that's not strictly true. So what I would say is you've got to remember the guy's on a very good salary.
Yeah.
So let's just say, for argument's sake, Ryan Kent's on 35 grand a week. you're talking that 2 million has then another probably 1.5 million by the time you factor in national insurance and all these elements, bonuses, maybe up to 2 million on top. So does Ryan Kent give you 3.5 million pounds worth of value a season for 4 years? As much as we all enjoyed Seville and things like that, it's that's a difficult one probably to say yes to. But football is an expensive commodity. Ryan Kent is of a quality level that he brings a lot to the table, and it's difficult to get players like that to Scotland. So I think it's very difficult to do a full sort of cost-benefit analysis of the transfer. But brass tacks, cards on the table time, yeah, probably the volume of cash that's been spent, you would say, is very, very disappointing that the club weren't able to strike a transfer deal somewhere that would have been able to recover at least some of that. You know, I think the perfect time to sell Ryan Kent was actually summer just gone. You know, if they'd been able to.
Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I'm surprised, Derek, that you know, German clubs weren't really interested. We know that there's a real tactical generation in German football that love this high press. Jurgen Klopp's obviously brought that in through his time at Dortmund. And the gegenpressing idea has been absolutely grasped. And from what I understand from talking to people who watch the Bundesliga week in, week out, they say that's very prevalent. So given the way Ryan Kent performed against that system, I'm really, really shocked that no one from that league has thought, this guy's a bargain, let's snap him up. You probably could have got Ryan Kent for 4 or 5 million quite comfortably in the summer. And you know, I think that would have been a great deal for them and a great deal for Rangers. But unfortunately, that ship has sailed, Derek. Those bids did not come in. Yeah. And now he's walking out for free. I'm really reluctant to go down this road, and I see a lot of fans doing it. And I think it's a bit unfair of why didn't Rangers sell Morelos and Kent? You know, this is a fault of Ross Wilson. Why didn't they sell? Well, I think that's a valid point when you're talking about the 16.5 million that came in from Lille for Alfredo Morelos. But I don't think there was many Rangers fans at the time that felt he should be sold, because he was absolutely at his apex then. Yeah. And I think people looked at the market and thought, well, he's worth 20 million. So they're lowballing Rangers. Of course, in the context of what's happened since, that looks like a mistake. But at the time, I personally thought they were right to turn it down. And then I think there was a bid on the table of around 14 million for Ryan Kent, and Steven Gerrard again didn't want to accept that, didn't think that was market value, thought he was worth more, and thought he was key to the team. It wasn't the right time. You know, Bielsa really, really liked Ryan Kent. I think he tried to get him 4 times throughout various staging posts in his career. You know, it's very, very difficult to blame the club when there hasn't been substantial offers. And since that point, there hasn't been. So perhaps that speaks for itself in terms of the kind of interest that's out there. Yeah. Oh, how I'm sure the Leeds United fans would have loved Marcelo Bielsa to still be there at the moment. A bit of a car crash, and Big Sam's got a job. Listen, don't worry. Big Sam's better than Pep, or at least as good as Pep. Listen, I loved that yesterday, and for me, this is the way I look at it. Big Sam's been in the game a long time. He's just taking the pressure off the players. I think he's played an absolute blinder there. That's what everyone's talking about, of course. Everyone lapping it up, but for me, it's top management from him, and I reckon he'll do the business there at Ellen Road and get them out of trouble. But okay, I'm going to give an opposite prediction. I think there are absolute certainties to go down. Right. Okay. I think Big Sam's day has been and gone. And I think it's very difficult for managers when they've not had a recent spell of tangible success. And Sam Allardyce has been sort of in these kind of like SOS type situations in the last 5 or 6 years without really establishing himself. I think he was an excellent manager. He was an innovator. If you look back to Bolton, what he did there was absolutely tremendous. And they played much better football than anyone ever gave them credit for. People like JJ Okocha and Ivan Campo, I think, was there, wasn't he? Yeah, he's a legend. Yeah, it's a marvelous team that you got. Djorkaeff, and in those days, Sam was massively ahead of the game when it came to sports science, massively ahead of the game when it came to tactics. But I think it's moved on again. And I don't think his recent spells have been anywhere near as successful as ones from those days. So listen, let's have a wee wager, Derek. We'll stick a quid in it or whatever. You're saying he'll keep them up. I'm saying they're going to go down. It's going to be a disaster. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm happy to take you up on that bet, Johnny. I've always been a big Sam fan, and it's good to see him back in the game. I know a lot of these managers, it seems like the revolving door, they seem to be getting jobs, but I'm a big fan of getting Big Sam back in the game. He always seems to get these jobs at the tail end of the season, the rescue missions, if you like. I know he's done it before, and I reckon he's going to do it again. But yeah, certainly he's got a big job.
You can definitely tell that Sam Allardyce takes Derek Clark's phone calls. That's all I'm going to say.
He's always good value, Big Sam. And just big thank you to Lennox, incidentally. I said that the Frankfurt goalkeeper was Daniel Trapp, sorry. It's Kevin Trapp, yes. Close enough, he says. So thanks very much for correcting me there, Lennox. Let's get to, well, first of all, Jim McKerrell is 74 today, good friend of the show. Happy birthday, Jim. Hopefully you have a cracking day and good to have your company on this Thursday morning. Let's get to this comment here. Off the pitch, Johnny, there's news affecting Rangers, of course. Seems to be a lot of change within the boardroom and off the pitch. Maka says, Johnny, with 2 more background departures this week, do you think Bisgrove and Bennett have replacements in mind who'll make a difference? Of course, a number of job vacancies are going to be coming up at Rangers. Interestingly, there's a lot of rumours doing the rounds as well, Johnny, about is it any coincidence that these departures seem to be coming in quick succession? A lot of murmurings. It could be investment coming Rangers' way as well.
I'm not sure about that, Derek. I'm not sure about that. I think it's mostly speculation surrounding that, and certainly nothing tangible to report on that front. Yeah. What I would say is that, listen, if you get a new CEO at any company, they're going to want to have a look at everything that's going on, and Stuart's obviously going on to another challenge, and that's allowed James Bisgrove to come in, and he's obviously looking at everything. It's just natural. These people that have been at the club. A good example is Craig Mulholland. I should stress that Craig, in terms of what he's done over the course of, I think, 20 years at the club, he's had a really good spell, and is going to go off and I think will be sought after when he leaves in June. And I think people won't be surprised if he pops up in a very good job in his next job. But there's a lot of guys like Craig who have been in the building for a long time, who have lived the roller coaster ride that is Glasgow Rangers Football Club, the stress and the strain and the pressure that comes with being a part of the club that you supported as a boy, that you love, and all that goes with it. Sometimes people who are very good people just need a new challenge or to try something new. I know I've had that in my own career, Derek, where you've been reinvigorated by a move. I'm sure people, whatever industry they work in, they'll have had that themselves. And I think, again, in an industry that's different to football, if you get a new boss coming in, they often want to come in with their own people, with new ideas. They want to freshen things up, especially after a period of failure. And that is what this season is. It's a period of failure. There's no way to sugarcoat this season now. That's defeat to the club's biggest rivals in 2 cups, capitulation in the league. You have 13 points. It's a significant margin, Derek. I think it's 13 points at the moment. I've stopped counting. That's how big it is. And you look at Europa League, yes, but that was last season. This season, they got to the Champions League. It was terrific to get past USG and PSV, who are both very good teams. So that was a great start. But the Champions League itself, let's not talk about that ever again. It was an embarrassment, a hellish group, it must be said. But, you've got 7-1 shellacking at home. You've got batterings from Ajax. in Amsterdam. You were there and had to sit through it. It was a really difficult time. So this season has not been one anyone will remember with any fondness, I don't think, unfortunately, from a Rangers point of view. And it's not surprising that the new CEO wants to have a look at absolutely everything, and there'll be significant change. And that's what's happening.
Yeah, it certainly is. I still look back in that game against PSV, which seems a lifetime ago. What an incredible result that was. On its own, I mean, the Union Saint-Gilloise comeback was also great considering how far they went in Europa League. But the PSV result, they've went on and won 2 cups in Holland. Van Nistelrooy doing a good job over there. No one could have envisaged the season would unravel the way it has after that game. If you remember that the joyous scenes over in Eindhoven, it really has been quite something. But as in football, it's things can change quite dramatically, can't they? And we all know that injuries have played a massive part this season, and it certainly has been a campaign to forget. So hopefully we can recharge and go again in the summer.
I think that's a huge thing, Derek, right? And it's really, really disappointing. I know the club have been looking at the medical department internally. They've been assessing what's gone wrong, how they can be better. But listen, let's just put it to you in sort of brass tacks terms, right? The best defender at the club, in my view, is Philip Helander. Has been completely unavailable for the entire season.
Yeah.
The best attacking midfielder at the club is Tom Lawrence.
Yeah.
Completely unavailable for the entire season. The second best attacking midfielder at the club until Todd Cantwell came in was Yanis Hadji, who's been unavailable for most of the season and then not being able to actually be thrown in because you need a succession of games. And the best striker at the club in Kemar Roof has been pretty much unavailable for the whole season. Now, that's a huge amount of wages they are tied up and a huge amount of quality tied up that the club are getting nothing from. Now, I'm not even delving into the other injuries that have taken place, and there have been a lot. John Suter arriving basically with an injury and unable to play until so deep into the season. And there's been so many others. Cholak's been struggling since an explosive start. It's been horrible from that point of view. But I'll look at those players, Helander, Roof, Lawrence. If those guys are fit, I honestly, genuinely think the season's very different, Derek. Very different.
Well, even Goldson, I done that piece last week, Johnny, where you look at the points, the average points that Rangers acquire when Goldson's in the team, and you'd think there'd still be a title race if he wasn't missing for that large chunk of matches. That's how big a miss he's been. But listen, it's been a terrible campaign, one that I'm sure we'll be quite happy to forget forever. It really has been a really poor season. Just before we go, Ross says, Johnny, where is the coffee from Johnny? I hope it's not Greg's worst coffee out there, he says.
I'm not going to comment on that. I was in a hurry this morning. That's what I'm going to say.
Right, okay, no problem at all. Other coffee shops that are available, of course. But listen, that'll do us there, folks. Big thanks to Johnny and for everyone interacting with the show as ever. It's greatly appreciated. I'll be back tomorrow with Chris Jack. We hope you can join us for that. Johnny's away already. But thanks to everyone for interacting with the show. If you haven't already done so, if you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter, if you want to subscribe to the website, just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe to sign up, just £2.99 per month. Okay, we'll be back again tomorrow, but until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Bye for now.